Beyond 3D.
Welcome to this week's edition of Beyond 3D, guys. How's everybody doing out there? Matt with you here, along with my partner in crime, Clint.
Hello, Matthew.
How's it going?
I'm good, thank you. How's your week been?
It has been hectic, to say the least.
Hectic's good.
Yeah, hectic is good. It's end of the school season down here in Australia for the kids and everything like that, running around doing trainings and getting everything ready for the next 7 weeks of pure bliss as the kids are out and about doing their thing. So certain things take precedent, as they say, but we're here right now, and hopefully the audience is here. Last week we had the glitch. The ghost was in the studio.
What was that all about?
Well, put it to you this way. I don't know what... Okay.
There was a delay.
There was one heck of a delay.
I don't understand why there was a delay.
I don't either, but...
For listeners who don't know, I don't think we've spoken about it before, Matt, but there is an energy that lives in the studios here, allegedly, isn't there?
There allegedly is, and we're not the only people to experience this energy on many different occasions.
I've heard stories from on-air announcers.
Yes.
Now, we're sitting in a studio right now, and there's a studio next door which we can see into because of a glass window that divides.
Yes.
I've heard stories from announcers here in the station who have been in here late at night and in their peripheral vision witnessed somebody in the next studio.
Yes.
And looked back, and there is nobody there.
Yes. And even... what to me even makes it more valid is the fact that there are some skeptics that work at RWP radio station.
Yes, there is.
And those skeptics have indeed also experienced this entity.
Yes,
so when you look at it in that regard, it's very, very interesting. So
big delay.
Weird.
Big technical digital delay last week.
But that was last week. We're digressing a bit here, but hey, we're here this week, so all should be good.
Everybody who messaged us on the Facebook page about the delay, thank you.
Absolutely. But there are certain things we can control and certain things we cannot, so we just have to take it from there. But all in all, hectic week. I know, Clint, what about yourself this week?
Westworld.
Oh, wait a minute. I saw something on Facebook about that, and you're talking about it as one of the best psychological thrillers you've ever seen on television?
Yes.
Incredible.
Yes. For anybody that hasn't watched Westworld, it's quickly eclipsing, well, it actually has surpassed Game of Thrones as the #1 show in the world at the moment.
That's interesting, especially coming from a person who has never seen an episode of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, that's right up your alley, Matt. I don't understand that.
I don't like raping, robbing, and pillaging on my television screen.
Okay. You're very much a pacifist.
In that regard, yes.
In that regard. And I don't go out seeking that kind of content. If I get that content on like a Facebook... or something like that, I'll just totally skip it.
Yep.
But when it's in the context of telling a story, and you sort of get caught up in it, but not from the victim's point of view. You get caught up in it from the point of view of you want some kind of retribution for the victim in that situation.
Oh, I can understand all of that, but I don't want it. I don't want the energy of it even in the household or on the television screen.
But it's good. But you know what? How do I say this? Whatever negative energy it produces, it ends up coming around full circle and then producing twice as much positive energy for the conclusion of whatever it is that's you've witnessed or that's upset you in the episode.
Does karma also rear its ugly head?
A lot.
Okay.
A lot. So there's a lot of satisfaction in it. A lot of satisfaction. You can go through a little bit of pain to get a big reward. But Westworld, I've been watching Westworld.
Okay, yeah, talk about that. What about it?
For anybody who doesn't know anything about it, it's based on a 1973 film that starred Yul Brynner.
Yeah, I did see the movie.
I'm not 100% sure if it's a sort of semi-sequel to that film, the TV series. But long story short, the park, because it's a Western park, is owned by a company called Delos. And I've looked into it a little bit. It's a fictional park, but I've looked into the fictional side of Delos, and they have a written statement that says anything you do in the park, any body fluids become the property of Delos.
Ah,
yes.
Gotcha.
Now, the park is set up with what's called hosts,
right?
Android synthetic humans, okay, who are unable to turn on the guests. Now, as a guest in the park, you can do whatever you want to the host. You can kill them, and what happens is when you kill them, like a crash team in hazmat gear will turn up, take the wasted replicant away and reboot them and go through their data files and find out what's happened and all the little nuts and bolts. In the TV show, some of these hosts are becoming self-aware that they're hosts. And they're trying to find a way out of the park.
Okay.
And there's this psychological game that's happening between the hosts and the scientists, the technical crew that put the hosts back together. And I just found out recently, a couple of episodes ago, that some of these technical crew are hosts themselves. And they didn't know. So there's this real intricate dichotomy, psychological dichotomy occurring in this show between hosts and live human beings.
Right.
And at any given time, you don't know who's real and who's not.
It's interesting. As you said that, can I ask you this? Maybe you know, maybe you don't. Who brought this show to television?
HBO.
HBO. Do you know, like, the producers or anything like that?
Well, it's a Jonathan Nolan production, so it's Christopher Nolan's
Okay.
brother.
Well, as you were talking, the first thing that popped into the Fron, as they used to say on Stargate or the Head, was... Oh, let me get it right. Battlestar Galactica.
Do I have to play a video game while you
No,
segue into your passions?
no, not at all. No, the not the original series, but the one that they did afterwards with Edward James Olmos.
Oh, was it the one where
and Starbuck was this time a girl
female,
and everything like that?
Female. I never watched it. I was aware of it.
Okay, well, basically, you can maybe start the music if you want to. No, what it comes down to is it's a similar situation. You have the human beings and the Cylons come down to Caprica and lay waste to the planet. And what you basically find out, they think the Cylons are cyborgs, but what is happening is they are becoming self-aware.
Okay.
And they can, in a sense, reboot themselves and recreate themselves, and they appear in a certain area, and then they can come back to the scene and back into the fray. So that's what it reminded me of when you talked about that. They're becoming self-aware, so androids or cyborgs basically achieving sentience, achieving soul consciousness in a sense, and then going on from there.
Yeah, well, these synthetic androids, which are the hosts, I've got a little theory on Westworld.
Yeah.
And the more I watch it, the more that the way I'm looking at this is starting to maybe pan out. What happens is only the elite, the people that are highly cashed up, big movers and shakers of the world, can afford to go to Westworld.
Yep.
So Delos has this clause in their contract that states any body fluids that you expel, whether it be blood, semen, sweat, anything like that, becomes the property of Delos while you're in the park. My theory is that guests or newcomers that come into the park are eliminated and replicated and replaced back in the real world.
Nice.
So that they can be agents for Delos. And therefore
nice.
Delos has control over... Imagine if Trump visited Westworld and they took samples of his fluids, replicated him as a android, and then killed him off, and then sent the android back out into the real world, which was controlled by Delos.
Isn't that what happened?
Well, I nearly choked then. But that's my theory on Westworld, and that's what I've been watching this week.
Interesting. That's very interesting indeed. So something else I might have to consider watching.
We'll have to take a break.
We will.
Beyond 333 D.
Welcome back this week, everyone, to another edition of Beyond 3D. Hey, Matt.
Yo.
What do you know about Standing Rock?
Oh. Okay. Every single treaty between the United States government and the native population has been broken, battered, butchered, belittled, and berated by the United States government. It's similar to here in Australia with the Aboriginals and the fact that the Aboriginals weren't even recognized as citizens of Australia till about 1967.
They're still not recognised as authentic citizens. I mean, they might be on paper, but they don't have the same privileges as white Australia.
I agree. But now here's what's going on in the United States as far as the black population and the native Indian populations. If you look at the 13th Amendment in the United States still allows for slavery. It happens in the prison system, where they make you work for about 20-something cents an hour. All of a sudden, you have private prisons, and you have all of these laws that the Clintons passed, 3 strikes you're out, etc., and all of a sudden, all the so-called recreational drug users are given 30-year sentences. So you create yourself a nice little labor force. I digress.
I never thought about it like that.
Oh, please.
You know what? It's not my ignorance. It's just that I haven't had the time to stop and contemplate that.
When you look at what's going on over there, it's amazing. Now, with Standing Rock and it's the Dakotas, oil pipelines, everything like that going on, it's going through sacred land. The company that is over there doing all of this could give us stuff.
No.
Donald Trump owns shares.
Yes.
So you have a very interesting scenario and situation coming up. Now, most people, I will let you tell the story from this point, but most people over there, when you go there now, it has become a rallying cry for a lot of activists. It has become a rallying cry for a lot of the people in Hollywood.
Pretty much what's happened is the Dakota pipeline want to punch their pipeline through the tribal ground of this. I think it's Sioux Indian.
The Sioux Nation.
Sioux Nation. The problem with that is it's going to radically affect their table water, which is their drinking water. Now, they've been peacefully protesting for a long time. It's escalating. Military police have been called in. They do not seem to be protecting the interests of America. They seem to be protecting the interests of the pipeline. They've been using mace, rubber bullets, very heavy-handed tactics to try and break up this peaceful protest. I've seen video of people just literally standing there face-to-face with military police, saying to the military police, "We love you. Please do not hurt us." And the military police pull out cans of mace and just literally spray it point blank in their face.
Yes.
Now, as you say, this peaceful protest has been gaining momentum. War veterans are now turning up en masse to help with the protest. So they have decided to be the first line of defense. So they are putting themselves now, the war veterans, in between the military police and the Sioux Nation to help protect the Sioux Nation. This has gone ballistically global, viral, all around the world.
It has.
What's happening at Standing Rock. Now, think about it this way. Imagine if you got a knock on the door and big business turned around and said, "Oh, hello, Matt. We'd like to put a pipeline right through your lounge room." And you said, "I don't think that's going to happen." And next thing you know, there's another knock at the door and it's military police standing there making sure that it happens. It's your home.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, big business has just decided we're going to do something to you and your property, and you've got no say in it. It's illegal.
Yeah. But what's going on is this. I think it's fantastic because now people are aware of what's going on there. But when it comes to the oil companies and pipelines, in the United States especially, if you own land, let's say don't even worry about the Dakotas in New Mexico, what is actually happening is 1,500 feet above and 1,500 feet below, you can own the air rights and the mineral rights. What companies do, oil companies, if they think there is natural gas or anything like that on your property, they will buy the property next to yours. Or what will happen is the Bureau of Land Management, BLM, will allow a lease of part of their land, which is next to yours, if you happen to have a border on Bureau of Land Management land. That company will then not dig straight down into the ground, but they have the ones that can dig down and then on an angle, and they will angle themselves right into your property and start taking away your mineral rights, your property rights. When you go to say something about it or do something about it, they just ignore you. That has been going on for an extremely long time. And I'm glad, not because of what's happening in the Dakotas right now, I'm glad because it has become a worldwide energy of sorts. People are looking at this and going, what are you guys doing there? People are also looking at the fact that President Obama has really not done very much on the surface about it, even though he is working behind the scenes to try to get this to stop. He tried that about a month ago, and it basically got knocked back by the Congress. Big problems. I think it will escalate. People will end up dying from it, and will be dying for, in my opinion, a worthy or an admirable cause. And once again, you have companies and big business stepping in and trying to manipulate land and manipulate people for their own benefit monetarily.
I have a little clip here that I've prepared tonight if you want to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's just hit that button. Beyond.
3
D.
The most important thing about being free is individual sovereignty, because it began really back in the 1840s, less than 75 years after the formation of the United States of America, when they gave the power of the individual to corporations, but none of the penalties. None of the penalties.
The issue is the earth. We cannot change the political system. We cannot change the economic system. We cannot change the social system until the people control the land, and then we take it out of the hands of that sick minority.
The unyielding corporocratic encroachment of the $3.7 billion Dakota Access Pipeline at Standing Rock in the Dakotas is essentially the painful opening of a very old wound in American history. This deliberate neglect of the established rights expressed in the Treaty of Fort Laramie met resistance April 1st, 2016 at Sacred Stone Camp by Standing Rock Historic Preservation Officer LaDonna Brave Bull Allard. In September, Allard said, "If we allow an oil company to dig through and destroy our histories, our ancestors, our hearts and souls as people, is that not genocide? Most Americans need only witness the lopsided attack on the American culture of the Sioux people, defending their land, drinking water, and the protection of our American heritage to realize that the existence of tyranny is very real in 2016.
As we go through American history, we see how they continue to put the handcuffs on American people. And now it's complete. We're a police state, no doubt about it.
This is how they learn to get people dependent through the the government agents that ran the programs to, quote, give the Indians food and blankets. It was all designed to starve you out and kill you. And now they admit this is their global plantation model. That's what the carbon tax, they admit, is to shut off all of our energy, the equivalent of shutting off the buffalo to the Native Americans.
See, the Native people, yes, we have the land, and they wanted the land, and it's about the land, you see, but the real enemy to the industrial ruling class is those who think differently. It's about sharing and taking care, and it's about respecting the earth, and it's about spirit, and it's about these. See, so this is the perceptional reality that we came from. This is how we knew and recognized reality. This is what was the threat. Exterminate the spiritual perceptional reality. That's what it's been all about.
The federal hypocrisy looms large when during the 2014 standoff, the BLM issued a hyperactive protective order in respect to the endangered desert tortoise, attempting to gain the upper hand on the Bundy's grazing rights. That role is now reversed at Standing Rock as the potential for future poisoning of the Oahe Reservoir threatens the endangered pallid sturgeon, a species of fish that dates back 70 million years that has already suffered enough from the progressive management of its habitat along the Missouri River. Why does conservation only apply to what is financially convenient?
That's what they want to do, a diaspora, and therefore, guess whose land they're after? In our meager holdings on trust land, over 40% of the natural resource wealth of America is still under and on our lands.
The behavior pattern of this, historically speaking, of this industrial ruling class never really changes. What changes is the technology, the terminology, and the generations. So for Wounded Knee Massacre, I think that forms of that massacre are taking place now today. The authoritarian emergence of the Patriot Act and all of these various mechanisms, controlling mechanisms, I think that they're psychologically massacring the American citizens mentally.
And now North Dakota Governor Jack Dalrymple is ordering a mandatory voluntary evacuation of the camp led by the Standing Rock Sioux tribe by December 5th, adding to the mounting tension. The Obama administration is claiming they are pushing the Army Corps of Engineers to finalize a rerouting of the pipeline. 2,000 veterans relieved the protesters at Standing Rock, and DNB, Norway's largest bank, has gotten cold feet.
They trade that reservation and the value of that reservation and the value of its people, the value of its air, the value of its carbon emissions are traded on Wall Street.
Guys, welcome back to this week's edition of Beyond 3D. That was a very interesting and enlightening clip that we just heard, and hopefully you guys will do a little bit of research on that topic because it's extremely important what is going on there. And Clint, what I wanted to do was segue from that into something else as far as the United States is concerned and what has happened in the past week or so, and that is the death of Fidel Castro.
Okay, now I briefly mentioned that on Facebook last week, just as we were leaving the studio.
Right. Well, the thing that I thought was interesting once again was there is a dichotomy going on about what this person was. Was he a murderer? Was he an absolute butcher? Or was there more of a complexity to the nature of this being? And it all depends on who you talk to.
Okay.
Now, if you were to talk to people in Little Havana, basically white Cubans, they are celebrating in the streets, or they were celebrating in the streets at the death of Fidel Castro. If you were to talk to Afro-Cubans, they were not celebrating as much. And that is because the leader before Castro was a person named Bautista, and Bautista was actually a CIA plant.
Not the wrestler.
No.
I just want to clarify that.
Fair enough. And what people don't know, we talk about slavery and everything that happened in the United States. Well, my family's from the Caribbean, and one thing they will tell you in the Caribbean, in Central and in South America, when all of the black races were enslaved in those areas, out of all of them, slavery in the United States was like a picnic in the park compared to what happened to the blacks in the Caribbean, Latin America, and South America. But there was a difference. When slavery ended in the Caribbean, Latin, and South America, it ended. There was no Reformation, there was no Reconstruction, there were no Jim Crow laws like there were in the United States, to the point where it was outlawed to be black, and you had to wait till the 1960s and the Civil Rights Movement to get voting rights and everything back again. I digress. When you go into Cuba and you look at what Fidel Castro's done, they are known for their education system, and they are known for their medical system. Education, free. Medical system, free for all of the citizenry. The United States of America is the only country basically in Western society to date that does not have a medical system to take care of its citizens, which I think is an absolute abomination. And this is why Obamacare was formed to help 20 million people who weren't insured get insurance. And I'm really tired of their rhetoric going on about this, because Donald Trump was bringing this up a lot. Obamacare has another name, and it's the name of the person who actually wrote it. And the person who actually wrote it was Mitt Romney. And it should be called Romneycare.
Yeah, but
unbelievable
he's
stuff.
He's not the captain of the ship.
Doesn't matter. It was his policy. If Mitt Romney had won the presidency, that policy would still be in place on the Republican side of things, and there would be a different spin on it. So, with Fidel Castro, he provided medical care. His medical care was second to none. He went into Africa, into Angola, in Labuan in Angola, and he helped them get their independence from the Portuguese, who were enslaving and had an apartheid-like system. He was together with Nelson Mandela, doing the same thing, helping that system and apartheid when the United States was backing Leclerc and the government down there. So when you look at it on both sides, you just have to say, well, like most people, he was quite diverse.
John W. Johnson was a prophet who in 1981 had a message from God.
Okay.
And this message was, when you see Castro's death, then you will see the complete collapse of the economic system of America.
Very interesting.
Now, there's a little bit more into that in regards to Trump.
Right.
I have another clip here from Lisa Haven. She does some really good work out of the States, whistleblowing and bringing people's attention to different things that are going on. She prepared a little clip this week in regards to John W. Johnson's prophecy.
Excellent.
He made back in 1981.
Ooh, I'm looking forward to this.
Just let's play it and have a listen. Beyond,
Hi everyone, Lisa Haven here, and if I got a, interesting report to share with you today, specifically in regards to biblical prophecy. Now we know earlier Fidel Castro died at the age of 90, you know, the communist tyrant who murdered a lot of people, that people wear images of him on their shirt. Yes, that guy. He is dead now, died of what I would consider old age. Now, with that, a new prophecy or an actual older prophecy that has been revived is surfacing. It comes from reportedly 1981 is when the author claims to have had the vision. And what is this vision? Well, he states that after Fidel Castro's death, that sometime after that we will hit an economic crisis. But let's look into this biblical prophecy, because the Lord tells us in the Bible to judge them by their fruits. Is there any fruit from this guy? Does he have prior prophecies? And when was the prophecy written on paper? Let's delve into that. All right, so I wanted to start first with the About Me section on his profile here. He says that his name is John Johnson, John W. Johnson, or Jack, and that his website was set up in order to warn the people of America of coming catastrophes, and that he's been receiving dreams and visions from the Lord since 1982, or also 1981, as his visions, dreams, and prophecies for America detail. Now, that said, you can see he's got a lot of information here. He's got American Holocaust, which he details just economic crisis, Russia to invade America. This is actually a prophecy that is believed by a lot of Christian authors. Dmitry Duduman and many others talk of a Russian attack in the future. He also gives information on China to invade the West Coast. Now, none of those have actually happened at this time, and no one knows if they will happen in the future or not. So I can't really say either way. Now, I don't agree with everything he believes on his particular page. However, I do find his dreams and vision section and prophecies for America particularly interesting, which is why I simply wanted to share it with you. Now, he says basically in this section that in 1981, God gave him a vision of things that were going to happen in the future. And this is what he was told. He said from the Lord, this is his recount. When you see that the Berlin Wall comes down, and when you see the Soviet Union take a severe blow, then it makes a recovery, and then you see the death of Fidel Castro, then shall come the collapse of the economic system in the United States of America. Now, I've always been under the assumption that yes, America is going to hit a crisis at some point in time. We don't know when. We cannot put a time stamp on anything. So I like that there is not an actual time stamp, because when people put time stamps on stuff, physical dates, then that automatically tells me that's likely not from the Lord, in my opinion, because half of those don't even come to pass. But so in that particular case, I think it's interesting. But Fidel Castro did die. I mean, the guy was in his 80s when this was written, and now he's 90, died at 90. The tyrannical dictator I don't like, but nonetheless, he's dead. There was no collapse or full-blown collapse prior to his death. Now, I have to say that that's very open-ended as far as the economic collapse is, because yeah, our economy is going to collapse. Just my personal take. That is the world we live in, and our debt cannot stay on the path that it's on. But I do find it interesting that that is what it is. Now, one other thing I want to show you is I wanted to find out when this page was actually written, because there was no timestamp on it. So I used, Wayback Machine. There's other things that you could use. And the earliest timestamp on this website, as you can see here, was July 9th, 2013, on when this page had its last or first official saving. So this was written, to my knowledge, in 2013. So he says it was given around 1981. It's definitely written before the death of Castro, but everybody knows he's on his deathbed at some point. But nonetheless, I do find it interesting because there are other dreams and visions on the website as well. But the economic crisis, I truly believe, will happen. It's just a matter of when. But there is a prophecy that I just thought fit worth sharing with you. All right, so there you have it. John Johnson states that he had a vision back in 1981 about, first of all, the Berlin Wall falling, which we know happened November 9th, 1989, and then about the Soviet Union taking a severe blow and then having a recovery. A lot of that happened in 1991, or the end of 1991 there, December 31st. There was some stuff you could say, and they have since broken up and whatnot. But and now he says, oh, well, after the death of Fidel Castro, which happened, well, just a little bit ago, then the coming after that will happen, an economic crisis. Now, let me just say this. In his defense, I do believe that we could see an economic crisis. Now, he doesn't put a timestamp on that and say it's going to happen 10 days after Fidel Castro death, or tomorrow, or a year from now, or 3 years, or 5 years. He doesn't say. He just says this is what the Lord gave him, and this is what we could foresee in the future. But I find it interesting. Nonetheless, again, I wanted to bring that to you and kind of just let you decide where the cups lie. And thanks again for tuning in. This is Lisa Haven signing out.
Beyond 333 D.
So that was Lisa Haven, Matt, with the prophecy by John W. Johnson that he made back in 1981 in regards to the economic collapse of the United States, which is alleged to happen once Fidel Castro passed over.
50, 60 years of a sanction.
Well, there was talk there about the Berlin Wall would crash first, Russia would be on its knees, and then it would pick itself back up again. Castro would die. Actually, before Castro would die, Trump would get in, Castro would die, and then America would collapse economically.
From an economic standpoint, if people knew, all right, let me get a little funky with my finance here. Back to the old days.
Here we go. You're the man. You're the man for this. So make it happen.
Okay. Now, Wall Street. Everybody talks about how corrupt Wall Street is. Companies can be corrupt, absolutely. But what there is there are certain things that you have to look at. Anytime you hear the word budget, forget it. It's an absolute fallacy. It's meaningless.
Budget is what?
You have $10 million. You decide you're going to have a budget this year of $1 million. You spend $1.5 million. You're over budget.
Yeah, but when
you still have $8.5 million left.
But when they say budget, they don't actually stick to the budget that's announced.
It's word games that they use. It's rhetoric. It's like the Hegelian dialectic and everything like that, and they use it in that form. What you have to understand with finance is you do not want to worry about budgets or anything like that. You want to look at the consolidated annual financial reports, CAFRs. Those are the things that actually matter. What they actually show assets and they show liabilities listed on the books. If you take one of the states of the Union, of the United States, like Hawaii, they list on their consolidated annual financial report all of their land holdings, government land holdings, state government land holdings. They list all of their assets, including mineral wealth, any kind of gold, etc., is listed in that financial report. If you look at the financial report of, say, Hawaii, and let's say they have 1,000, for argument's sake, 1,000 ounces of gold. Gold is now about $1,200 an ounce. But on the books for the state of Hawaii, their gold is listed at $75 an ounce.
That doesn't sound right to me. Until it is sold. Two different books getting cooked there.
Yeah, until it is sold, it stays at the price it was originally purchased at, and then when it's sold, they can show a profit. But when you look at the consolidated annual financial report, what you then do is extrapolate how much it actually is worth in today's terms. And this is what happens when you look at all of the states of the United States and look at all of their assets. You are probably talking around $100 trillion in assets. When you look at the budget and the so-called deficit are reaching $20 billion, if you have $100 billion in assets and you've spent $20 billion, big deal. It doesn't matter. You still have $80 billion. You still have an $80 billion cushion. Now, here's the thing. What you have to ask is the question which a lot of people are asking now. Is the $20 billion liability, is that number accurate?
No.
What do you think the true number actually is?
Look, it's no point me sitting here spitballing it.
No, I've heard everything from, if the United States were truly in the red, that number would have to be more than 100 trillion.
What if they weren't? What? Yeah, I got your attention there, didn't I? I just had a thought that very second. What if they weren't?
Something else is going on that most people don't know of.
What if what they want to project isn't accurate?
I agree with you.
What if they were so incredibly positioned financially in the second set of books that they're cooking, that the first set of books to be running at a loss helps them with the second set of books grow?
Okay.
Can you extrapolate
I'll extrapolate that for
because
you.
You know what I'm trying to say.
Okay, I'll extrapolate that for you. I can tell you.
Hang on a sec. I know what I'm trying to say. I just can't put it as eloquently into words as you can.
Okay, so here's the thing. Where was all of that money spent? Secret projects? Black projects?
I was just about to say black budget.
Okay.
And the black budget makes them money. That's the thing.
And what do you do if it's making you money? If
you
take a
reinvest
look
it
at
back into your infrastructure.
Take a look at a corporation. What does a corporation do? You have bucket loads of money in a corporation.
What does a corporation do? They go for tax breaks.
Absolutely. But the other thing that they can do is if all of a sudden liabilities come in, they can spin off another company, take all of the liabilities, put that in the other company, keep the assets separate, and let the assets grow. What you're talking about when you talk about these numbers is, and most people don't add it in, you have to add in the black budget, you have to add in what's above your head and below your feet. And as we both know, everything when it comes to the military-industrial complex, when it comes to the secret space program, it's always, and we used to say this as just a saying, it's, you make a statement and you say to somebody when their eyes cross and glaze over, it's above your head and below your feet. You can't comprehend it. You have to take into account all of those things as well, and most people do not, because everything is compartmentalized.
I just had that thought while we were chatting away there.
Yeah, I love the what if question, because then all of a sudden it makes you think beyond just that little scope that you're in. It's really good.
It leads you to deeper thinking.
Absolutely. So I know for a fact that when you add in secret space program, etc., 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 the United States is not even close to being on the brink of financial collapse.
I've heard about this financial collapse now for 6 years. It's been highly promoted in various forms of media that it's going to happen any moment.
Yes.
But yet it hasn't.
I heard this a long time ago. One of my teachers from Asia mentioned this, and he mentioned a vision he had of the Dow Jones Industrial Average getting cut in half, of blood running in the streets, etc., etc. This was a vision he had of it. In a sense, on one level, something like that has already happened, and it happened because of the fact that the so-called petrodollar has been devalued so much over the last 10 to 15 years. And you look at it this way, from a real estate standpoint. You have a house in New York that back in 1975 was worth $35,000 US. Today, that same house is worth $3.5 million. The problem that the United States has is legally, and it is written both federally and on the state level, no government agency, no federal agency can go in and use as collateral any of the assets of one of the individual states. As a matter of fact, no state government can use the assets as collateral to issue bonds or anything like that. It's written in the Constitution. They would love to change it. Schwarzenegger, the good guy, when he was governor of California, wanted to do that. California was in so much debt, but the teachers association, CalPERS, the Teachers Association's pension plan could wipe out the state of California's debt and still have money left over without even trying very hard. Legally, statutes in the state, rules, regulations, rights, and laws, they could not do it. You cannot use that as collateral. They try to protect it. Interesting, though.
What if?
If they could do it, what would happen is they would do exactly what they're doing now at the federal level with the so-called, what is that thing? The Federal Reserve. Mm-hmm. Issue money, more money.
The Federal Reserve, which is not even a real government body.
No, it's a private entity.
A private entity that prints money.
Yeah, and that's what they would do on the state level, and the states could go in and they would issue what they would call freehold bonds, and they would issue open space bonds, municipal bonds. They would put an interest rate on them, but then all of a sudden they would get the money in for doing that because they could issue those bonds because they're using these retirement plans as collateral, and then all of a sudden interest rates would start going lower on the municipalities and the bonds, and people would start losing money, and it would have another big thing, and all of the money that was still listed as an asset would all of a sudden have a liability, and you would have the exact same thing you had back in 2008 when Barack Obama was elected president and had to basically save the banking industry and the automotive industry. But people tend to forget that now. They believe he didn't do anything, so, oh well.
Beyond 333 D.
Welcome back this week, everyone, to another Saturday night on Beyond 3D.
Indeed, in and around the peninsula. Lovely weather this weekend.
Now,
beautiful weather we're having this weekend.
Well, we're in summer now.
Yeah, nice crescent moon.
Now, speaking of moon and space and everything upstairs.
Oh.
You want to talk about Secure Team, I think.
Yeah, I was just watching a few of their videos on YouTube this week, and one of the interesting ones was about Buzz Aldrin and the fact that he was airlifted out of Antarctica and sent to New Zealand, where he is now recuperating.
Why?
And the question is,
why was Buzz Aldrin in Antarctica, Matthew?
Good question. A very good question. And the other question I would ask with that is, why was John Kerry, Secretary of State of the United States of America, also in Antarctica?
Now, we've discussed Antarctica many, many times over the last couple of months. Mm-hmm. Our regular listeners know what we're alluding to when we talk about Antarctica and secret underground bases for UFO, UAPs.
Oh, God, yes.
Buzz Aldrin. I think that might have been a meet and greet for him just out of professional courtesy, maybe, just to say, look, Buzz, you know everything that you've been and done for the country and everything you've spoken about. Well, here's the bigger picture. Quite possible.
Could be.
Because there's no other reason for him to be there.
Oh, yes, it allegedly was he was, a tourist.
Whatever.
Yeah, I know.
Whatever.
Allegedly was a tourist.
How old is Buzz Aldrin now?
85, 86.
I wouldn't think Antarctica is a place you would go to at that age.
If you were, you'd take one of those Qantas flights where they just fly over it in nice comfort, champagne, looking out the window.
Absolutely. The safe way to do it.
Yeah, exactly. To go on an expedition kind of a thing, I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, well, you'd go on an expedition if you knew something was down there and they said, okay, you have clearance to see it.
Especially if John Kerry's being sent down.
Yeah, that's the other thing I think is very, very interesting. The fact that, and there were those old maps they found where they have absolutely intricate detail of the Antarctic coast, and these maps were drawn back in 1400s or something like that, the 1300s. All kinds of things are going on like that. So that was one of the things that they were talking about. And, the usual, a few UFO things that are kind of interesting. But there was another one, and there was a huge UFO sighting over Turkey.
Yes, there was. Now, it was about 4 or 5 lights that split it off. That split off and multiplied.
But seen over multiple cities, yeah, and all that kind of stuff. So that was interesting as well as far as the UFO scene.
If you to jump on YouTube to have a look at it,
yeah. Well, I'll put a link up on the Facebook page for
a lot
everybody.
of people on YouTube have posted stuff calling it Turkey invasion, but there's no actual invasion. It's more a case of a cluster of lights spotted over Turkey, and a lot of people frenetically panicking over it.
Usually triangle formations, but what happens is as the triangle is moving across the sky from right to left to left to right, the lights are turning on and off in sequence.
Yeah, but so a triangle craft.
Oh man, those are military.
All experts that we've had on this show have all stated it's military.
Absolutely. So, in my opinion, it is military. In my opinion, what most of these people are seeing, and I think people are really, and I can agree with this, people are tired, sick and tired of just seeing, oh, the lights way up in the sky. They want a little bit more definition. But when you get more definition, will your brain and the synapses that have already been formed allow you to actually accept what you're seeing? Who knows? Who knows? There's another video on there that the guy Tyler put up from Secure Team. We'll put that up, a link to that as well, and it happened over Arizona, I believe, so you guys can take a look and decide for yourselves whether or not you believe it or not.
Now, you asked me something interesting the other week in regards to Nibiru.
Ah, yes.
Do you remember?
No.
You mentioned the other week about Nibiru, and you were discussing a lot of the data that was coming through in regards to Nibiru was conflicting.
I'm trying to remember what was going on, and maybe this was in it, maybe this was not. What I do know is that when you take your telescope out and you look up at Mars should be at a certain point in the sky from the horizon, but all of a sudden it is out by up to 5 or 6 degrees.
Now, yes, this is true. Now, there's been quite an extensive amount of information on Planet X Nibiru coming forward over the last week and a bit. Some of it I didn't touch on last week at all, but there's been quite a lot this week. I'm just going to present something now and play it, and it's discussing the approaching ninth planet and how it comes into its own elliptical orbit. It doesn't chase our sun, which we've discussed before. Now, in this clip, it discusses volcanic eruptions on the planet and the impact that that's having. I just want to play it now, and we'll come back and talk about it.
Cool.
Beyond 3.
Dr. Michio Kaku is warning Nibiru, Planet X, and the universe solar flame, now willing to alert the public about Planet X to hit Earth any day now, and how it will affect this planet. Article September 27, 2016. NASA has confirmed what ancient civilizations warned about thousands of years ago. Nibiru, or as it is translated, Planet of the Crossing, may be a heavy mass object, HMO, in addition to a dark star that is part of our own solar system. All of the hype that happened in 2012 has muddled the waters of what these ancient societies are actually writing about. Their calculations indicate that this heavy mass object, HMO, will enter our near solar system in the year 2017, next year. It swings past the sun and is sent out in a slingshot fashion to deep space once again after that. In one of the first reports, this heavy mass object, HMO, was measured at 50 billion miles from the sun. Less than a decade later, NASA gave the following update. Notice a distance of 7 billion miles. This report is 20 years old. Such a climate change, extinction of species, and indeed for that matter asteroid impacts by the very local real asteroids. Most of these are very small. We are far from likely to predict a 100-meter or smaller one, but that's still large enough to be very bad news for any country. The difference is we know what these are and can do something about them. So I'll talk a little about the very real asteroid threats that we should be concerned about and the amazing progress that astronomers have made already detecting them and what they could do with enough funding. Earth changes have been increasingly dramatic. Since 2012, all earthquake and volcanic activity is on a phenomenal rise. Volcanoes are now approaching 40 eruptions per day. The Nibiru Planet X system and its potential impacts on our solar system. This is what Joachim Hagopian writes, September 6, 2015, speculating and theorizing about the existence of yet undiscovered planets in our solar system has been bouncing around for centuries. Prior to each new discovery of another outer planet has come detection of anomalies in the erratic, inexplicable motions of the outermost known planets of our solar system. For instance, before Neptune's existence was determined, for decades astronomers had been theorizing that Uranus, discovered in 1781, irregular movements may have been caused by the presence of yet another undiscovered planet. Indeed, that was the case in 1846, when Neptune was first sighted and identified. The now dethroned ninth planet, Pluto, discovered in 1930, relegated in 2006 to minor dwarf planet status, and Pluto's later found moon, Charon, were then used to explain the observed wobbles in Uranus and Neptune's respective orbits. Thus, errors in calculating precise positions of known planets hold an enduring pattern of later confirmation of cause determined by each newly discovered planet. Hence, for over a century, scientists have debated that yet more major planets and dwarf planets belonging to our solar system are still out there in space waiting to be found and existing anomalies to be explained. Way back in 1940, Chilean astronomer Carlos Munoz Ferrada predicted accurately that the powers that be would attempt to cover up Planet X when it comes barreling towards the Earth. Ferrada referred to Nibiru, Planet X, as a, quote, comet planet, end quote. A comet planet because it has the size of a planet but speeds the elliptical orbit of a comet. Every government in the world has been warned about this comet Nibiru, the elite's deadly planned death of billions before event. The most controversial undiscovered planet operating within our solar system, dubbed Nibiru or Planet X, and now a new name, Planet 9, was made famous in 1976 by noted researcher author Zecharia Sitchin in his best-selling book, The 12th Planet, as one of the few scholars able to read and interpret Sumerian clay tablets. Sitchin utilized those ancient texts to make a highly plausible cause for the existence of Planet X, also known as Planet Nibiru, the Destroyer in ancient scripts, coming closest to planet Earth every 3,600 years. The Sumerians lived over 6,000 years ago in what is today Iraq. They are credited as the first known civilizations on Earth, inventing mathematics, writing, agriculture, law, schools, astronomy, and astrology. The Sun in our solar system is similar to 90% of the solar systems in the Milky Way galaxy, all part of a binary star system containing two or even more suns. The Planet X system can be considered a mini constellation consisting of our sun's twin, classified a brown dwarf star called Nemesis. This dark star is largely invisible even with infrared due to its surrounding red iron oxide dust clouds. Nemesis possesses at least 3 planets that revolve around it: Nibiru and Helion, both with moons, and Arboda. Though Nibiru travels along an elliptical-shaped orbit and enters our solar system approximately every 3,600 years, one by one crossing the orbits of our solar system planets, it does not revolve around our sun. In 1990, researcher-author Zecharia Sitchin interviewed the supervising astronomer of the U.S. Naval Observatory, Robert S. Harrington, to discuss Harrington's recent discovery of the red planet X. Harrington set up a special telescope at an observatory in New Zealand to track Planet X, but the renowned head of the Naval Observatory suddenly died mysteriously at the age of 50 of a rare form of cancer under suspicious circumstances. His wife is convinced he was murdered for allegedly leaking too much information about Planet X. Yet 2 years after the Sitchin-Harrington interview and just months prior to Harrington's January 1993 death, a NASA press release was still publicly embracing Nibiru Planet X as real. Unexplained deviations in the orbits of Uranus and Neptune, they said, point to a large outer solar system body of 4 to 8 times Earth masses on a highly tilted orbit beyond 7 billion miles from the Sun. Also in 1992, a confident NASA scientist named Ray T. Reynolds went on record proclaiming, quote, "Astronomers are so sure of the 10th planet, they think there is nothing left but to name it," end quote. NASA at that time did everything but scream Nibiru from the mountaintops. But ever since Harrington's untimely death, with few exceptions, the lid has been tightly sealed on any more accurate information released by mainstream sources directly to the public. Apparently, the US government had made the decision to keep Nibiru and its projected earthly destruction under wraps. In recent years, the feds have sent out trolls to disseminate information, disinformation, and false propaganda in attempts to debunk any would-be truth-tellers. The elite ensure that hired shills are planted to busily churn out concentrated disinfo campaigns smearing lies to prevent the story that never quite goes away from ever having full disclosure. The effects of such a large celestial body as Nibiru Planet X, estimated to be from 4 up to 8 times the size of Earth, re-entering our solar system, is getting off-the-chart internet frenzy in 2015, convinced it will cause enormous amounts of huge-sized space debris from an asteroid belt, potential comets, one recently cited to be 2.5 miles wide, and countless meteors plummeting violently towards Earth. It's believed that the impact of such giant objects crashing into the Earth will push the reset button for another axis tilt, likely causing yet another mass extinction and radically altering global climate zones, raising sea levels dramatically to reshape coastlines worldwide, decreasing landmass, and increasing oceanic water surface. In addition to tilting the Earth's axis, it's calculated that Nibiru's gravitational upset and electromagnetic fireworks on our planet will set off mammoth cracks in the tectonic plates, resulting in never-before-seen killer quakes, volcanoes, tsunamis, tidal waves, hurricanes, record winds, massive flooding, and tornadoes. You can read now on a link here in this article, "Leave Now," Obama says, "America must submit to the New World Order laws at UN final speech." The Earth has been getting hit by asteroids and comets for its whole life. The planets formed from collisions of smaller objects, and even our water may have come largely from comets. Heavy bombardments may have continued until as recently as 4 billion years ago, making it difficult for life to get a foothold at all. So what are the odds today? There are a lot more small rocks than big ones. So while Earth is constantly being hit, accumulating over 100 tons of matter every day, most of this is in the form of dust or tiny sand grain-sized meteors that appear as shooting stars. By comparison, school bus-sized asteroids may hit every 1,000 years or so. Medium-sized asteroids, say 300 meters, may be once every 50,000 years, and extinction-level events only every billion years. And those estimates are going down. So how big is big? In reality, it could be very, very small compared to Earth. The Dino Killer is estimated to have been between 5 and 15 kilometers across. That's about 3 to 10 miles across. That's large compared to the rocks in your backyard, but tiny compared to Earth. To lead to a global catastrophe, an asteroid or comet only has to be big enough to launch large amounts of dust into the atmosphere. That leads to the abrupt change in climate that wipes out species. The Planet X effect is setting the Earth up for a coming pole shift. The world's elite know this is coming. This is why they have prepared underground shelters, sanctuaries, and seed vaults to keep parts of the world. Global elites prepare underground cities. Planet X Nibiru begin to harm our Earth this month. Scientists are keeping a close eye on the meteor, as just a minor change in its flight path could have catastrophic consequences for the human race. Experts say if the asteroid were to smash into Earth, it would create an extinction-level event, meaning humans are toast. The impact would equal the explosion of 3 billion atomic bombs, triggering effects similar to those that wiped out the dinosaurs 65 million years ago. Conspiracy theorists are in a state of panic over this incoming space rock. Most asteroids pass classed as near Earth by NASA flyby at millions of miles away, but a space rock 2500 SZ2 due today is essentially to be on an orbit of just 309,000 miles, only 1.3 times the distance from Earth to the Moon, which is 238,000 miles. So that's pretty close. Significant asteroids pass Earth every week, and NASA monitors them up to 12 million miles away, so this is considered a cosmic close shave for Earth. The cosmic skim comes straight after wild predictions were made online that a huge space rock would strike Puerto Rico by the end of this month, something that doesn't appear to have materialized. Fears become so widespread a rock may be about to strike that NASA took the unusual move of issuing a statement ruling this out. The most unsettling pass was a monster 270-meter space rock called 2012 TT5, one of 6 near-Earth flybys between September 22nd and today, when online doomsday prophets claimed the world could end. What are your feelings about the possibility that we will experience a deep impact in the next 72 hours? Do you think that NASA or the government would warn us, or would they hope it passes without being noticed? Nibiru, Planet X, and the universe.
Beyond 3.
So that was a little talk on Nibiru and volcanic eruptions that are happening around the world.
Yeah.
Now, Yellowstone at the moment. I think there's talk that if that erupts at the moment, that's going to wipe out about 20 states.
Tell you what, and the rest.
I had a look at where the magma is lying underneath the surface. If it erupts at Yellowstone, yes, it will take out most of Yellowstone, but the magma that's laying underneath the table spreads out across about, like I said, 20 states. It's not just Yellowstone that will suffer, it's all the other states around.
Right.
Utah.
Around Yellowstone, Wyoming, so therefore you're going to have Utah to the west, you're going to have the Canadian border and everything to the north, you're going to have Nevada area, a lot of good states, Colorado, the Dakotas, etc., all around that area. Interesting, the Dakotas, the pipeline once again. Yeah, you can get a lot of interesting things happening, but quite frankly, if it were to erupt, it would not just be the 20 states, the cloud that would form, that would plunge that part of the world into darkness for a little bit would be immense. So you'd have to take that into consideration as well. It's a weird one.
I just found it interesting that with all the talk about Nibiru approaching, and the magnetic pull that it was going to have on the planet and how that was going to affect the tectonic plates, and that Yellowstone at the moment is experiencing high levels of activity. Unprecedented high levels of activity since its last eruption. I don't find any of that coincidental at all.
Well, a lot of stuff going on above our heads, and the reason I think there's a secret space program is because they're trying to figure out exactly what they can do about a situation like this to try to save as much of humanity as they can if something like that happens. All I can say is just watch the animals.
Oh, absolutely.
Watch, when they had was a few years ago, the bison were running.
Yeah, best indicator when Yellowstone's going to blow is when the bison will evacuate.
When they will evacuate the area, and you'll just say, what the heck is going on here? Just do yourself a favor. It's like the rats on the Titanic. Follow them. They're trying to get out. Absolutely amazing, that stuff. But, yeah, guys, there's been a lot of UFO activity around. As far as Australia is concerned, Peter Slattery has been doing a lot of good work as well of late, so we will link a couple of his short videos up on the Facebook page as well.
He has an ESETI session coming up. I think I messaged you about that the other day.
Yeah.
You got the message?
Yeah.
I didn't know if you got it because you didn't respond.
No.
Thanks for
busy.
Too busy to message me in the middle of the week. That's great.
That's its own. You have no idea. What we should try to do, an on-air thought, so everybody can hear it, get him down to see if we can do a CSETI session here.
Maybe down at the Briars.
At the Briars.
That'd be nice.
That would be really interesting, actually.
Did you see the sky last night?
Last night
I could see the horizon pretty much from north to south.
Wow.
Over in looking towards the east. And it was absolutely beautiful.
What I did see last night was an absolutely spectacular crescent moon as we were driving back from my daughter's piano concert, and all the kids had just finished the concert that night. So that's what we saw. And it is the Christmas season, so in our area there are some absolutely fantastic Christmas lights out and about.
Now, you were mentioning UFO, UAP activity.
Yeah. I want to know more about what's going on in Australia and what people are seeing, which is why I wanted to get Peter Slattery on again, and then we can start talking to him about what he's been seeing down in and around here, because he had just come back from the States as well.
Yes.
And got some really good information, so we'll do that.
I know Pete listens, so good evening, Pete.
Indeed.
And Solaris.
Absolutely. And the other thing I was listening to, being that you said Solaris, I was listening to another host in the United States that was allegedly involved in the secret space program. And that was Solaris BlueRaven. And she tells a very interesting story about what happened to her. And there's another woman that's along the same lines, who was General Eisenhower's granddaughter, Laura Eisenhower.
Hang on, we have to take a break.
Beyond 3D.
Welcome back, everyone. Tonight, the last leg of our show,
Beyond 3D.
Beyond 3D. So, Matt, you were talking then about the secret space program and Solaris BlueRaven.
Yeah, and Laura Eisenhower. They have been, they were recruited into the secret space program and had been manipulated from a technical standpoint. And what they tend to talk about is the fact that they can, well, you guys can notice it this way. You can go to India and there are sages, there are masters that have for decades studied, meditated, and got control over the 8 cities. I won't go into what the 8 of them are at this point. We can probably do another show on that. But what they can do is they have all of their extrasensory perception. It's all there for them. It's at their command. What a military tries to do is they try to model it, like they do with an NLP or something like that.
Can I just say, when you mentioned that the military tried to
model it,
it's kind of like going from start to finish, but not. For them, it's like going start to finish without doing the journey on how to develop those skills, isn't it? It's like the military want the quick fix, and they don't understand that what you're talking about is a lifetime of mastering oneself.
Yeah, they want the magic pill.
There is no magic pill, though.
We know that. We have to remember that it's all about instantaneous. And so what we're going to do is, I'm going to get into this next week because I think it's very important. These two ladies have had a very interesting story to tell. I think what they're saying is valid, and we need to just explore just a little bit and see what is going on, because when a person has an experience, it is valid for them. It is not up to us to belittle it, berate it in any way, shape, or form. Listen to it, and accept it or not accept it, but you do that. But you show the people the proper respect.
Just because you haven't experienced it
doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
There you go.
So, guys, we're going to leave it there for this week on this edition of Beyond 3D. So, thank you, Clint, for all the work you're doing with our show here, and we will catch you guys next week for another edition. And definitely stay tuned because we will have some absolutely fantastic guests coming up for you in the coming weeks.
I got a gut feeling something's going to happen this week too.
We will see.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Just because you haven't experienced it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.